gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for March 13th, 2023. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game S Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, we have some more details about what E3 will look like, the last remnants of Google Stadia shutting down, and Castlevania excitement. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host, the Game S Mornings. It's Jesse Norris from XboxEra. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. It's nice to have you on. I always actually see you in chat, so it's cool to have you on the show.
I am a lurker, and now I am no longer a jerker. I gotta say it. Just a lurk. I'm here. Hi.
Yeah, you're here. We're going to talk about games. It's good stuff. I've been on the XboxEra show a few times where you're producing and stuff. So figure we'll get you on here and let you be the star of the show here. But yeah, how was your weekend?
My weekend was nothing but WWE 2K23.
Ooh. Can you say anything else about it? Or
I can. They went live, about 4 hours ago. Reviews went up. It's good.
It's good. Okay.
It's well made. So it is not a buggy mess. So it is a huge improvement over 20 and continues the ascent that 21 had.
Okay, so I know a lot of people will really seem to be like happy with 2021. So 2K, what are we on? I'm sorry, 2020. Was it last year? 22 was the one that people really liked, or did they like people?
22. 22
yes.
is so they took off 21.
That's
20
right.
Yes. 20 was Visual Concepts first, full just them.
No
absolute mess.
No ukes,
40
right?
Open Critic. Yeah, disaster. They took off 21. Came back with 22, which was solid, and 23 is just improves on that in pretty much every way. A lot of the improvements are like the modes, like the My GM mode is much bigger and more spread out. And you guys who love wrestling and everything the WWE has, you can each choose a different organization, a different GM, and then you build your own rosters and go against each other, making your own shows. It's neat. Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff in there.
Yeah, how is that? Like how much control do you have over all that stuff? Because that's one feature I think they can have a lot of fun with if they give you like full power. And last year they seem to be heading in that direction.
So you get to set, I think it's like 4 matches a show and 3 promos. You set who's going against who. You set like what the promos are, but you all have a budget. So you draft your roster from that budget, and then you got to run each show from that budget. And depending on how well you book, you got to do heel, babyface. You got to do the things the fans want to see. There's good depth to it. My only issue with the game really has come down to, the online servers were never up, like they never are with these yearly sports titles. So I can't tell exactly how the microtransactions are going to be in the card mode.
Right.
Seems like it might be real bad. They gave us the Icon edition for review, the $120 one. So I immediately had a ridiculously powerful roster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure most of us look at it and go, ew, gross. But then fans go at it and they buy it nonstop. So I understand why they do it.
Yearly sports entertainment games, right? Yeah, they have that massive audience. Although that massive audience, I mean, at least with the NBA 2K has definitely, I think, grown pretty weary of all the monetization. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if the same is true for WWE.
The monetization got so bad in 2K because I've done those as well. But the other thing I have an issue with is it's trying to ride the line of looking like TV, right? But being a sim, like an actual sports sim, and not something that's scripted in nature, but it's still unbelievable athletic ability being shown and done by people, and that's why people love it. But the game's trying to treat it like this is real and you have to try and win versus, people are picking their spots and the ending is what the writers choose and that type of stuff. So they really wanted to look like wrestling on TV, which means you spend a lot of time knocked out or just weary and you can't do anything, and it gets annoying. It's not like
you have to rest for 3 minutes while TV commercial plays. Like
I did a Royal Rumble and a War Games, and sometimes you just get kicked in the head and your character automatically rolls under the rope and takes a breather because that's what they do in those in real life sometimes. So the constant loss of control gets to me, but I think as an overall package and everything, especially if you really like wrestling, it's a very good game.
That's great to hear. All right. Let's get into this mess, but before we do so, let's explain ourselves and what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Stalker 2 developers claim that Russian hackers are attempting to blackmail it. This comes from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl studio GSC Game World has claimed that it has suffered repeated attacks from Russian hackers, with the most recent incident resulting in several of its assets being held hostage as an act of blackmail and intimidation, according to the Ukrainian developer. The studio is refusing to give in to the demands of the hackers and is now asking fans to ignore any leaked images or data that could potentially leak before the release of Stalker 2. Here's a quote from them. Recently, our employees' account for a collective work with images application was hacked. The responsibility for this was claimed by a community of a Russian social network. They are threatening to use the obtained data for blackmail and intimidation. This is not the first attempt to hack and leak our data, including personal information. We have been enduring constant cyber attacks for more than a year now. We have faced blackmail, acts of aggression, hacks, attempts to hurt players and fans, and efforts to damage the development process or the reputation of our company. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year, GSC Game World partially relocated from Kiev to a new location in the Czech Republic and saw the website for its game blocked in Russia. The developer began documenting the impact of the war on the development of Stalker 2, which was delayed from April 2022 to 2023, as well as the very human cost of the conflict on Ukraine. This is one of these games, Jesse, where it's we heard about it. I was pretty skeptical at the time if it was going to come out on the original time frame, but then once the war started, it was like, well, they're trying to get their developers out of the country to keep working on this game. That's just a harrowing tale in itself. Let's just let them take care of themselves, and the game will come whenever it does come. And now it's like they figured some stuff out. They move people around. They want to keep making their game. That's fantastic. And of course now they are being, at the very least, harassed, if not completely derailed, by these hacking attempts. This is kind of stuff that, Russia does pretty frequently, where it's like they have a community of hackers that either operate as sort of mercenaries or whatever, but basically they're operating under the behest of the government to harass their enemies. And it's like, man, what? I mean, just these games getting caught in the crossfire. This is pretty unfortunate for a game that still looks pretty promising, right? Yeah,
it's just... And they're saying it's coming from a place of, well, I don't think the game's going to be sold in Russia, I think was like the reason why they've gone and done this, and like, oh, you're doing this to your fans. But it definitely seems to be just part of the culture there, for just going after people when they're annoyed at them.
Yes.
You see it a lot, especially with whenever Blizzard launches something, they seem to just get nonstop DDoS and hack attempts. And yeah, it's unfortunate, especially with a game like this that has been through, they've been through so much while developing it, and then to just throw this on top of it, it's just, man, it sucks.
Yeah, also, I mean, think about the subject matter of the game and the Chernobyl accident, and just the history there of the USSR's mismanagement of all that, and now you have
cover-ups
and trying to not take responsibility, and then it's it's good. They just kind of let them make their game and leave them alone. But of course, these kinds of things are all part of a world where people view these things as things to be attacked because to accomplish whatever end. I'm hopeful that these people can continue to just like work, keep their heads down, and actually, I'm also hopeful that this request to ignore the leaks can be somewhat can be listened to. Because I mean, for one thing, it's like what do you need to see from Stalker 2 before you play it? Like the whole experience there is seeing how the systems work and seeing like discovering the world, exploring that stuff.
The emergent nature of it is right. You want to be the main thing.
You want to be immersed in it. You want to be feel that immersion. So it's like if you're just gonna be like, go look at screenshots online or whatever, that wouldn't affect me. So I'm like, no problem. I don't want to see them, so I don't need to see them. But I hope it's the kind of thing where the people working on it don't feel even more discouraged after already having their lives turned upside down. It's a shame. I hope we hear more good news about Stalker 2 and about the people working at GSC Game World here pretty soon. and good luck to them.
Absolutely.
Nintendo's Doug Bowser says, we feel very confident that the Switch can have a strong performance over the next few years. This comes from My Nintendo News. Nintendo of America president Doug Bowser has been interviewed by UK news publication The Daily Mail. Mr. Bowser was asked when we should expect the next Nintendo Switch system to arrive, to which he replied that although they are approaching the Switch's 7th year on the market, we are still feeling, quote, very bullish about the Nintendo Switch. Here's the full quote from him. As we enter the 7th year of the Nintendo Switch, sales are still strong. I think we still have a very, very strong lineup coming. As Mr. Furukawa, Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa, to clarify, said recently, we're entering uncharted territory with the platform. It's exciting to see that demand is still there, so nothing to announce on any future console or device, but we are still feeling very bullish about Nintendo Switch. I should be careful about what I personally would like to see in a new Switch or a Switch follow-up. That was there for context. It's like he basically said, like to see in the new thing. But what I can share is that one of the reasons that even going into year 7, we feel very confident that the Switch can have a strong performance over the next few years is that it is still truly that unique device that you could play in a variety of ways at home, on the go. One of the things we look at always is how can we surprise and delight? How can we introduce new, unique ways of playing? That's always in the front of our mind. Jesse, when I read this, I feel like I can go either way. Is Doug Bowser trying to say the Switch is going to keep doing well because it's unique and it's going to stay unique because the next thing is completely different? Or is he saying it's unique and it's going to stay unique, and then the next thing's also going to build on that uniqueness? I can't tell if he's trying to prepare us for some wild Nintendo decision or not.
Man, I can't see them going away from the hybrid handheld console, especially with DLSS and other things coming from NVIDIA that should make the next one far more performant over time.
Yep.
Man, if only we had better batteries.
Yep.
God, we could have some incredible hardware. But
yeah, better technology really is the limiter on that stuff. For sure.
There are so many Switches out there, and there's so much software being sold, but they're over 1 billion now, right? Or I know they were approaching it a while ago.
They've probably crossed. I think we'll find out at the next conference with investors. They'll probably talk about that here in the next 3 months or so.
And the way that system and those games never really go down in value. I think no matter what, even if they did come out with something new next year, the Switch will still keep going strong for a while. We still have PS4 and Xbox One, which are not the type of thing you think was going to keep going this long, but I think it just is the way things are now. Even they do a Switch, Nick always likes to call it the Super Nintendo Switch for the next one. They do something like that where it's the same setup, but a lot more powerful. Even if it's backwards compatible, I bet you the Switch still ends up doing just fine, even at a lower price point.
Yeah, I wonder, because in the before the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S, the sort of common wisdom was, well, that the days of the previous platform doing well for a long time are over. Because you looked at like what happened to the 3DS and the Wii U after the Switch came out, and those things just fell off a cliff, especially the 3DS, where it's like maybe you could expect it to have a little bit of a longer life. It's like, no, everyone moved on to the Switch. No one was buying games on the 3DS anymore. And any game that came out in that like overlap just got completely forgotten about, and like some studio like Alpha Dream closed because they released a couple of Mario and Luigi remasters at that time, and one of them did so poorly they're like, well, we can't afford to operate anymore, so we're shutting down. But I think you might be right, because I think that was a sign that those systems were kind of had really worn out their welcome at a certain point. I mean, the 3DS is definitely up and down in terms of people are like, you know what, I'm gonna get my 3DS back out. But at that time, it just was primed to fall off a cliff like that. I think the Switch, especially if the newer model is a similar concept, has the chance to be handed down to nephews and little brothers and sisters and stuff like that. Yes, it's easier.
The Wii U gamepad had terrible battery life and was weird.
Yes, and
it was limiting to just one person. And then the 3DS, 3D's cool until you actually use it for more than half an hour, and then you get a headache. That's why we always had the 2DS, and then it was fine. It was enough. But even then, the gimmick for the Switch of just being a hybrid that you can take with you and it still runs all the same games just is inherently great.
Yeah.
So
I also think Furukawa, president of Nintendo, is a guy that who's to say? Nintendo's still Nintendo, but he seems like he probably plays things pretty safe. I think he wants to do the things that make the most sense and not deviate too much. And the truth is that a Switch follow-up can have all kinds of weird Nintendo stuff built into it that is easy to ignore. That's what the Switch was. Switch had, I mean, listen, I like haptics Labo, but I like haptics as much as the next person. But HD Rumble, take it or leave it, whatever. That stuff has mostly been ignored. But like the little IR camera in the bottom of the right Joy-Con,
milking the cow and 1-2 switch,
right? Yes, and you that was the one I think you held up and pointed at you, could open the mouth and the camera could see that your mouth was opening. And it's like, I mean, how many games have actually used that? Maybe a couple, but there was only one high profile one. It was 1-2 switch at launch. It's like you could add a bunch of stupid stuff in like that if you want to create that sense of forced obsolescence that I think Nintendo has been sort of addicted to for a very long time, especially with their home consoles. But I still think at the end of the day, this thing is going to look and behave and like a Switch, and anything they add will not get in the way of it behaving as a hybrid console that can be a handheld. I think. Also, that's just the kind of hardware that NVIDIA is going to be able to provide them, like a really good mobile chip. Why would you want to switch that up and change and go like, well, yeah, we're going to make a home console that is, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at a certain point.
They haven't chased power in a very long time. Right. They're not going to start now.
Exactly. And the power they are chasing is efficiency. Like they want really good efficiency, because then that makes it so they can have a good portable. And it's also possible Doug Bowser is just like, hey, I'm the president of Nintendo of America. I don't really know shit, but I don't. I mean, he definitely knows what they're working on. It's just has to be his answer because he's just the president of Nintendo of America.
I don't get to decide shit.
Yes, he's the president of their law firm, of Nintendo's law firm in the United States that does some marketing on the side. All right. Xbox will not be on E3 23's Showfloor, something we've, of course, known about, but this is provided a little bit more information here. This comes from Ben Lyons at Game Reactor. E3 2023 will be missing some heavy hitters this year, following Nintendo confirming that it will not be part of the annual trade show. Microsoft has now shared a statement with IGN where it has revealed that that Xbox will not have a presence on the E3 2023 show floor. This is the one thing where it hasn't had that for years. Xbox will be part of the big week of gaming, however, as it has previously confirmed that it will be hosting its own showcase on June 11th and will then be part of E3 Digital this year, although the extent of this hasn't been elaborated on further. That's actually more than what I originally heard was going to happen. It sounded like all three companies were going to be do their own thing and not even say E3 anywhere. Although, yeah,
I had heard ReedPop was just a little behind, and so they were like, yes, well, we're not going to plan because you're taking too long. Right, exactly. It was causing a lot of headaches.
I think while that was happening, though, ReedPop was still in conversation with all three of these companies. Well, I mean, they were probably trying to talk to Sony, but they were definitely in conversation with Nintendo and Microsoft. And it's like, yeah, what can we make anything happen here? It just seems like this is the make anything happen here solution. Just slap that E3 emblem on the corner of your marketing stuff and just say, hey, E3, you're part of E3 Digital. That would be great. And that was like the thing that ReedPop and like people like Chris String, who's partially in charge of this, was over at gamesindustry.biz, and he, that's a ReedPop sort of thing. And he's like, yeah, we want to say, even if things aren't officially part of E3, we still want to bring them in and work together. And it's like, okay, well, this is evidence that that's still possible. Jesse, does it matter at all though?
No, I mean, we just normally call that the Summer Game Fest. Like that's just what, last year's Xbox Bethesda showcase, I think it had E3 brand, or one of their shows had both E3 branding in tweets from the E3 account and Summer Game Fest branding in tweets from there. It's like, you can just be a part of everything essentially, and the more the merrier.
Yeah, I'm like at a certain point, I'm like, this is the pieces settling into place where I'm glad that some of these companies are still planning to have some sort of presence at that part of the calendar. And I don't necessarily think E3 is as dead as everyone always makes it out to be. But also this is the kind of thing that can help, and that E3 branding
needs to rebuild.
It needs to rebuild, but it's still like a very strong lightning rod in terms of attracting eyeballs and attention, or at least mind share. Whether or not anyone can captivate that audience or successfully capitalize on that attention grabbing power, that's to be determined. But clearly, people still think of E3 as gamer Christmas and all this stuff. And Jeff Keighley's trying to shift into that position. Yeah, go ahead.
They've got Phil Spencer really likes E3.
Yeah.
So I think if they get their ducks in a row and they get things set, they will at least have one of the big three. Nintendo seems closer to at least do some branding, and Sony just seems in their own world, doing their own things, doing just fine. But they've got Xbox, who wants to be there.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think there's any chance that Sony PlayStation ever comes back to E3 while Jim Ryan's in charge.
No,
right? I mean, I just think that he's like has this philosophy that it's, you know, we can do it ourselves, and of course they've been right. Like, of course they have, but it's like, I don't know. I think there's a world maybe where the next person's like, oh yeah, fine, E3, yeah, let's do that. But also, they might have built such momentum doing things their own way that they never actually come back. But at least under Jim Ryan, I don't think there's any chance they actually do.
Yeah. We know how cyclical games are, where they start trending down in any way, and then E3's doing real well. That's probably the only scenario I see it happening.
Yeah. And then Nintendo, it feels like, you know, at some point they're going to announce new hardware, whether that's later this year, which is, again, that's stuff that's like, seems like it's lined up, but who knows if they announce it later this year. No way. I think now there's no way it actually comes out this year, but they might announce it later this year. And even if they do that, there's no guarantee that, like, oh, well, then it's coming in March of 2024. It could be the kind of thing where it's like, oh, and we're going to, you know, release this early in the second half of 2024 or closer to the holiday. And either in either scenario, they will have a ton of games that they will want to show off to, like, kick off that system at E3 next year, I think. So I think Nintendo will be back. It's like, this is the year where it's like, it didn't make a lot of sense for them. And also, like what you said earlier, it was definitely true that ReedPop just had fallen behind, and Nintendo was like, well, we can't plan anything now. Like, we need more time than that.
Yeah, I think an Xbox and a Nintendo on the show floor is much more likely next year than it will probably ever be for Sony in the near future.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Let's see here. Fan enthusiasm for Castlevania is motivating for Konami, developers say. This comes from Jordan Midler at VGC. We got a Jordan Midler heavy day, and I apologize for that, everybody. A Konami developer has acknowledged the, quote, excitement and enthusiasm of the fans online for the Castlevania franchise amidst reports of a reboot. In a new interview with IGN, Konami assistant producer Tsutomu Taniguchi said that the buzz was, quote, really motivating for Konami. The interview was conducted to mark the release of Dead Cell's return to Castlevania, a crossover expansion that combines the two franchises. Another quote, we tried to bring back the games that people loved and cherished with the Castlevania Anniversary Collection and the Castlevania Advanced Collection. We also brought back Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night for our PlayStation fans and on mobile. Released that on Switch, goddammit. And launched Grimoire of Souls on Apple Arcade to celebrate the lore of the franchise. But we know that our fans always want more, and we do too. So this opportunity to have this amazing crossover with Dead Cells was impossible to pass up on. Like many of Konami's core gaming series, and this is no longer the quote, Castlevania has been dormant for several years. The last mainline installment, Lords of Shadow 2, was released in 2014 and was outsourced to an external developer, Spanish studio Mercury Steam, who would go on to do Metroid Dread. Konami is at E3, the last I heard. And I think the reason they're at E3 is all the stuff that we've heard from VGC about Metal Gear. But also it seems like Castlevania is going to be a big part of that. They've been building up to this for years, at least since 2020, 2021. And it seemed like they might have started announcing stuff last year. There was rumors they were going to be at the E3 thing that was happening last year. That fell through, didn't happen. Or there was Summer Game Fest, wherever they were going to be. That fell through, didn't happen. And now here we are. Is this a big coming out party for Konami where they give us everything we want from all these franchises that we want?
Boy, I hope so, because it's been a long time. I reviewed that Dead Cells Return to Castlevania DLC. Boy, was that good. That's like my favorite Castlevania game now. That was so freaking good.
Yeah, I still haven't started yet, but I'm looking forward
interest.
to it. It just looks so much fun. Dan showed me a quick look, and man, it just looks great.
It does. The music, their take on the music, and there's like tons of outfits. There's it's pretty meaty too. So it's like $10, which isn't that much, but for them it's double the norm. But it's there's a lot to it. It integrates into the game perfectly. You got lots that you can unlock and then just bring to the normal game. But I love Dead Cells, so that was like the perfect combo for me.
Yeah, it's clear that they feel the momentum turned on Castlevania with the. I mean, obviously they were making this DLC for a while, but The show on Netflix was so popular
Mhm.
that, Netflix is like, hey, we're making 3 spinoffs or something like that. That's how huge it is. And it's like, I think at probably in those conversations, Netflix was like, hey, do you have a new Castlevania game coming? Because look what's happening with The Witcher. Like, these things feed into each other. You should do like the thing The Witcher's done. They have the thing ready to go, and like they're just feeding into one another, and the show does
We've
better,
got
and then the game
Pachinko.
sells more. Do that. And they're like, Konami's like, yeah, we don't really make games. So it's like, obviously, I think that stuff has shifted now, and they want to be making games again. But it's like, it's not going to be too little too late. They could still build on this,
Yeah.
and it is going to be what it is. But I do wonder what this Castlevania game specifically is going to look like, because I think Metal Gear, I expect them to kind of treat Metal Gear like their Resident Evil. Let's remake a couple, try to get the momentum back, and then maybe we could start making something new, and then go back and forth and remake another one, and then do something new. Castlevania is a little bit tougher because it's never fully established itself as a modern 3D game. There's been some decent ones, there's been some good ones, but it's still a series that people think of as that, either the Nintendo or Super Nintendo originals or the Metroidvania games. And it's okay. Do we get another Metroidvania? I would love that, but is that worth Konami's time? I don't think Konami thinks another brand new Metroidvania Castlevania game is worth their time. What do you think?
Man, it depends, I guess, on what they want to budget. Because if you're going to budget for a big third-person action game, that's going to have to be a hell of a lot more than a really nice-looking, good Metroidvania. So maybe they could do both and hope that at least one takes off, because that's the thing we see. Like AAA, especially if they go for AAA is just getting more and more expensive with a higher and higher expectation ceiling on it. But that AA, really nice 2D, it can be pixel graphics, it can be, whatever you come up with. There's so many different art styles you can do, and it just ends up being so much less money, and there's less expectation on it. So, and unless you can get something like a really good Sony marketing deal or an Xbox Game Pass deal, those big AAA third-person action RPGs are behemoths, especially if it's a big IP and people are really expecting a God of War take on Castlevania. Like that level of animation and acting and texture work and stuff, everything skyrockets budget-wise.
Yeah, my real wish would just be that they do it all. Obviously, give me it all, and give me it now, and give me it as best as possible. That's typical gamers not understanding what it takes to get games made. But I mean, I do think you can do an incredible 2D Castlevania action Metroidvania game, and then I think you probably should also try to sketch out the future of Castlevania as a modern, huge budget, big action game. I think that's possible as well, and I think they could feed into each other and have common lore. All that stuff could be really great.
You'd think they'd ever work with the EA originals? That seems like a good route to go on something like that. I think it really helped Wild Hearts.
I wonder if Konami's like hesitant about that, but it is working for Wild Hearts. It's and EA definitely wants to do that stuff, but I wonder if like Konami's like, why would we need EA? But I don't know. That'd be really interesting. I doubt it though. It seems like something that would be too cumbersome for Konami. They're like, we could just do it ourselves. And Konami has plenty of money. It's a thing we say, they abandoned games, and they did, but then they definitely had other kinds of games, mostly mobile games, but a variety of other stuff like live service card games, Yu-Gi-Oh, that are huge on Steam, and they've made a lot of profit. They've been a very profitable video game company for several years now. So it's not like they don't know how to make money. I just think they got afraid that the potential to make money from traditional games was too hard and not worth the squeeze. And I think, I bet at least for this first round, they'll be like, no, we could do this on our own. And and obviously we'll work with partners, but they're going to be smaller partners than us coming in to make our games. If this fizzles, there's a potential they could like look at some really novel ways of approaching this again, and maybe that does involve something like partnering up with an EA for an EA Originals. That, hey, I'd be all for it. All right. So let's see here. Moving on. The Last of Us multiplayer could be coming to PS4, a job listing suggests. This comes from Insider Gaming. A new job listing on the Naughty Dog website suggests that The Last of Us multiplayer could be coming to both PS5 and PS4. The listing for an associate multiplayer quality assurance tester states that the applicant must have, quote, working knowledge of PS4 and PS5 systems. Jesse, this is the least surprising thing in the world to me. If you're launching a game that is a live service, and I can tell you that the Last of Us multiplayer faction thing is super duper hella live service. Like that's been the whole thing. They are trying to figure out ways to make this as live service as they possibly can. You need it on as many platforms as possible. And you know what? There's a lot of PlayStation 4s, right?
Yeah, I mean, The Last of Us, it was originally going to be part of The Last of Us 2, which started on PlayStation 4. Like, so this has obviously been in the works for a very long time. Buying Bungie to help them figure out just what's the best way to go about this live service, because you guys print money with Destiny, even though it's so up and down in quality.
Yeah.
The answer ends up being what Bungie does, which is like, well, we're not going to sell to you unless we can still be on as many places as possible, because that's one of the keys to a live service game. You can't lock yourself in. So if you've got, even if it's like 20, 30 million customers that are still really on their PlayStation 4s, have PS Plus, and they want to play your game, like you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything that they're doing right now with this game isn't going to be next gen only. We just haven't really seen that much. Like even like the Ratchet and Clank teleporting levels. People got that stuff to work. They notice you just teleport to a different part of the level at sometimes. Like there's always ways to get around things, even on pretty toaster hardware.
Yeah, and it's the limitations for a game like this were never going to be hardware. It's going to be time and money and the ability to pump out content. The limitations for The Last of Us Part 2 weren't hardware. That game looks incredible on the PS4, base PS4. So it's like, how'd they do that? Time and money. They had all of it. If you have all the time and money in the world, you can make any game look like The Last of Us Part 2. How many games have that? Two or three. So it's like, okay, so, you don't need a PS5, especially for factions. So why wouldn't you also put out PS4? There's zero reason you would put it out there, and you're going to put it on PC probably the first day, like day one as well. I mean, there's a world 10 years from now where it's a game like this comes out and it's definitely also on Xbox and even Switch, or the Nintendo platform. At that time, but right now it's like, okay, well, it's going to come on PlayStation, it's going to come on PC, and that's probably going to be enough. There might be some even like a mobile version of it, like they stream it or something, but they're going to want it everywhere. My thing with this game is, what's that term for like the when the CIA tries to like get people to like worry about some FUD? I don't want to do FUD to this game, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But I'm like, I am a little bit not like worried, like, oh, like what is it going to mean for me if this game doesn't perform? But when I think about this game's potential, it's like, man, I know Naughty Dog is not going to want to do the fun skins, and so like, what are they going to sell to people? And it's going to be a lot of probably like dirty brown shirts, I guess. Maybe
look like Rick Grimes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you'll be able to play as Rick Grimes, and you'll be able to get the bat from The Walking Dead or something. Pretty
much every emo, dirty, post-apocalyptic character is who you'll be able to pull from.
Right, and we talked about, like you mentioned it. Sony acquired Bungie, not PlayStation. Sony acquired Bungie, and I bet they have been like, okay, can we get some input from this? I'm like pretty sure a team like Naughty Dog will listen, but I don't know if they'll hear. I don't think they're gonna they're like, I think, and this is not something that's like specific to Naughty Dog. Every studio that's tried to do a live service game has not learned any lesson ever from anyone else. They have to do it themselves.
They never come out strong. They always come out real bumpy.
Right. And it's like, man, they've done so much work on this game. How much of like their way of doing things is going to be ingrained to their technology, so that when they do launch and they learn lessons, how quickly are they going to be able to pivot? I think this is a studio that can figure all those things out, but I think it's going to be a real messy game. That's just my prediction. I'm not worried about it. It's not fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's just maybe a prediction.
You look at everything. You look at Apex Legends, enormous game. It had like 600,000 people playing it last week on Steam alone. That game launched really hot and then died pretty hard because they didn't have a content team in place. They weren't ready for it.
Yep.
Halo Infinite, what budget does that game have? What size of the team and all that? But they didn't have a live service team at launch. So you go 2 years without really having meaningful updates. It's finally in a better place. Like, no matter who it is, like Sony hasn't really done this before. They nail big AAA tentpole releases. They're really good at picking who to partner with on smaller things, but running a huge live service game is the hardest thing to do essentially in console and PC gaming, because it's been so hit or miss. There's so many of them. So you have to have something that just pulls people in at some point early on, or otherwise it's so hard to get back.
Let's move along here. We got a rumor that Bandai Namco is planning a Soul Calibur remaster. I don't know if I trust the source on this one.
I don't.
It's a story from Alex Hopley at Game Reactor. With this year's fighting game rhetoric being dominated by the likes of Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, and Mortal Kombat 12, which was revealed in the most unsatisfactory way possible, you may have forgotten slightly about Soul Calibur. I'll never forget about Soul Calibur. Don't you
never
now, Alex?
My soul still burns.
Absolutely. However, it seems Bandai Namco does have plans to give the franchise a freshening up, and this could come in the form of a remastered collection of multiple early games, according to Xboxera's Nick Baker. What's he saying over there, Jesse? What's he talking about?
He's saying somebody that, Nick's entire thing. Somebody I know, somebody DMs me, I look into them and say, oh, you might actually know this. And then, that's about it. Nick is not an insider. Nick simply gets things from actual insiders. So
I want to believe this one. That'd be cool.
Me too.
Soul Calibur's a really good game. Soul Calibur 2 is a really good game. Give me all of those, actually.
Can they do 3, though? 3 was still a PS2 exclusive forever. So is that stuck there, or could they actually do that one? I wonder. I
always wonder what like with fighting games, because my thing with like Street Fighter 5 was the exclusive one, right? I'm like, well, they'll do a Street Fighter 5 like Super Street Fighter 5, and that one will be able to come to Xbox. Like, oh no, that's not happening.
That did too well for Sony to dominate that entire fighting game community that I'm pretty sure they probably just negotiated. Nope, never.
Yeah. So I would hope that 3 could maybe have its chance.
It's been so long,
right?
I hope so.
I mean, listen, if it's 1 and 2, I'm fine with that.
He was unsure. He was unsure. Is it just 1? Is it any type of compilation? I'm sure.
If it's just 1,
the moment he started guessing, I'm sure people started typing that he has said it might be a compilation. He's like, right, no, I don't know. I'm just guessing.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen, Jesse. What do you mean? That's not how it works on the internet.
We call it getting slothed.
Yes, constantly. I'm hopeful. We'll see. We'll see if this happens.
I love that. That is, when I think of the Dreamcast, I think of Soul Calibur. That was, God, we played so much of that.
This is the kind of thing that could also just pop up at E3, or we never actually hear about it. Either one.
Yeah. So one of the other things he speculated, which might get him in trouble, is, Phil Spencer talked about another GoldenEye level announcement before E3. And he was like, oh, maybe it could be that. And I was like, oh, stop saying this, Nick. Somebody's going to take that as a quote.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving along. Google Stadia's cloud service has also been shut down. This comes from Jordan Midler, FEGC. Jeez. When Google Stadia was killed earlier this year, it was stated that parts of the project's cloud infrastructure would be used across Google Cloud and would be offered to third-party companies interested in the technology. Now, Axios reporter Stephen Totillo reports that this final pivot has also been shut down. Since the repositioning of the cloud streaming tech, it has been used in limited ways, such as AT&T customers being offered a streamed version of Batman Arkham Knight with certain packages. The technology was also used by non-gaming companies, such as fitness giant Peloton, as I think Dan Reichert says, to offer gamified versions of their workouts via the cloud, but that has also now been shut down. This is, I guess what happened here is, they offered this up to third parties, and third parties are like, we don't want that shit.
No.
Google Stadia's technology was capable and good, and I enjoyed using it when I wasn't thinking about the business model. Mm-hmm. This I do not think. I mean, maybe the business model is still an issue. Maybe like the way that the licensing Google wants is too cumbersome, too expensive. Maybe that's the problem. Let's say that's not the problem. We don't know. Is this a reflection on where cloud gaming and cloud technology in terms of streaming stuff that isn't movies or music is at?
Google always ran into the problem where they weren't on Windows, so you had to make a version for them. And yes. That never went away. So I can't imagine. It's like, hey, you want to spend, because they weren't going to keep paying $20 million to get Red Dead on there.
Right.
And do you want to spend money to make a new version of your software to work here? Right.
And I'm not sure if they would be able to well, maybe we could just use the latest version of Proton or whatever. And I think Proton is open source, but There might be some issues with like using some of the stuff that Valve has done for Steam OS, and Google probably doesn't want to like get into the business of licensing that stuff, or maybe it's just not worth the effort to them, so they haven't offered that up as like, oh, this is easy to implement in our cloud. And it's like, well, I mean, why wouldn't we just go with Azure? Because we already have a Windows version, and so we could just run it there instead. I think this probably comes back to a multiple factors. There probably isn't as much excitement about the cloud, and if you want to do something in the cloud, in terms of just streaming your game, well, there are options that are easier to use, and that's a double whammy for Stadia. And Stadia just never stood a chance, really.
The bad business model, weaker hardware over time, especially compared to NVIDIA, and now compared to xCloud. They had the really good codec, they had the better resolution, but it's the same thing with cloud. It's always, well, what's every hop in between you and the local server? So it can work great at home, but then you go to your friend down the road and it runs like shit because they're just going through a different.
There's a couple more nodes on the street or whatever. We'll see if anyone actually ends up acquiring that technology, or Google just lets it languish. I think that's the most likely scenario. Chrono Cross was remastered due to fears the original would be unplayable. This comes from Jordan Midler at VGC. Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers edition, was originally developed over fears the original game would become unplayable. According to a newly published Square Enix YouTube interview with the development team, the game originally started as a project to recognize the game's 20th anniversary, which would have been in 2019. Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers edition, was eventually released in 2022. Here's a quote. Back when the project was launched, Chrono Cross was possibly going to become unplayable. There was a game archive service on PlayStation 3 that allowed you to play PlayStation 1 games, but PlayStation 4 was already on the market. We didn't know at the time if PlayStation 4 would also have a game archive service. It looked like Chrono Cross could become unplayable, so a remaster project was set up. That's the backstory. It's interesting to see like when these companies get motivated to pull the trigger on like, hey, we should just make a version that can run on stuff going forward. But clearly the PlayStation 4 does have a service now, but it's a subscription service. You could buy a lot of those games separately though. It always seems like the best option for most of these companies. If you have an audience that's willing to pay for your game, you should just remaster it, get it up to snuff, and do it that way, as long as it's a good remaster, which I think the Chrono Cross one became a pretty decent remaster after a couple of updates.
It was a little rough at first. And by the way, Chrono Cross Remaster, another one originally leaked by that Nick Baker guy.
Yeah, weird. Yeah. That's still
I was told he was always wrong on the internet's biggest gaming forum, but I don't
know. Donkey Kong is coming to Lego Super Mario this summer. This comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. Lego has teased plans to introduce Donkey Kong to its Super Mario universe. A Donkey Kong figure will launch this summer, but it's currently unclear if it will be accompanied by a jungle set or something similar. The upcoming product was teased at the end of a Lego Super Mario live stream on Friday, which is viewable right here. Let's see here. This is pretty cool. They bring it up in shadow at the end of this video, where they actually showed off another set as well. But it looks pretty cool. I'm a little bit confused by it. So it's Donkey Kong, and he's like one of those interactive Lego figures that they have with the living eyes and all those things. Or no, that's actually not. That's just so it's just I think what you could build, and then Mario can sit in it, and then you need the Mario part to actually interact with it. So you sit Mario in this like backpack thing on the back of Donkey Kong, and it's going to have one of those QR codes that the little camera on the bottom of the Mario scans, and then it'll play. I think it plays like one of the songs from Donkey Kong Country or whatever. But it's like, man, why is Mario riding Donkey Kong? That has never happened. That's weird.
Mario's the big star now, and he is. So is Donkey in that scenario? Is Donkey Kong the DLC, or is Mario the DLC for Donkey Kong?
I think
one of them's DLC.
I think Donkey Kong's the DLC for Mario.
It makes more sense.
Yes,
it looks neat.
Yeah,
I don't like him riding his back.
Yeah, it's a little.
It's not canon. Damn it.
Yeah, Diddy Kong has ridden his back in the past, but Mario's never done it.
Diddy Kong's not going to sell the same as a Mario.
Though, hey, that movie's coming out. What do you think the chances are Mario rides on Donkey Kong's back in the movie?
Oh, shit. Well, yeah, there you go.
I think it's 100%. You heard the leaks
here first.
I'll go
99.9999999.
Playing it safe. I like it. All right, the Pokemon Company knows about the save corruption issue. This one comes from Liam Doolin at Nintendo Life. While there's an update on the way for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that will address some bug issues tied to eggs, there's been no mention about a fix for the reported corrupted save file problems. In a slight development on the issue, Cerebi.net master, I don't know, Cerebi.net webmaster Joe Merrick has mentioned on social media how the Pokemon Company is aware of this latest report. So hopefully a patch is on the way. In the meantime, it's believed to be a very, very rare scenario if you do encounter it. So this was an issue where if you connected your Pokemon Scarlet and Violet to Pokemon Go and then did something in the game, there was a chance it was going to delete your save. And the kinds of people that would be connecting Pokemon Go to their Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I would imagine, are the kinds of people who put hundreds of hours into their game. So it's not a great issue to have, but the Pokemon Company at least seems aware of it now. It's almost certainly not going to come in this next update, though. So time will tell. How do you feel about... listen, I know your opinions on most Nintendo games, Jesse.
They're very well made.
When they are a trash fire like this and then they still sell 20 million... Trash fire in terms of bugs and issues like that and performance, and they still sell 20 million copies. What can you do other than throw your hands up in the air, right?
It's the mechanical brilliance matched with technical not brilliance.
Yes.
And most of the Nintendo games are both. So when one of these hits, and it's generally Pokemon, you just sort of go, I get it, the IP is so big, it's just going to do really well. But boy, I wish they could get their shit together. Yeah,
we could come up with all the excuses in the world for the Pokemon Company. Though it's they have to put out something every year, and they're even as they've gone to HD, they still have had a new generation launch every 3 years. At a certain point, whose fault is that? They do not have to stick to this calendar as strictly as they're choosing to do.
It's the Call of Duty thing. Like it's got to come out every year, no matter what, because of corporate. And
but like Call of Duty,
the
we could be like, well, someone should do something about this. And it's we should all stop buying it, I guess, but that's not happening. So
you can take a look at another recent Nintendo release that I played called Metroid Prime Remastered, which was given a lot of time and came out fantastic. That's a very good game, Jeff.
That's a very good game, isn't it? Goddamn.
I did tweet a joke that I would rather play Crackdown, and people got very mad. But it was
just
just
an
a joke.
To say. No, I like Crackdown 2 a lot.
Crackdown 2? That's the one everyone hates.
Crackdown also. Crackdown 1 and 3, actually, I really like. I like Crackdown 3 a bunch. It's a fun game. People
it's fantastic on PC. I wish they gave it a patch on Xbox.
Yes. That's where I played at PC. All right. I have a poll from yesterday I want to get to. I'm going to bring that up. But in the meantime, Jesse, why don't you tell people where they can find you, what's going on in your life, what's happening over XboxEra, things like that.
So we are XboxEra.com. We have Xbox in the name, but we try to not be fanboyish. It's just more hey, this platform seems to really be reinvigorating and reinvesting. So it might be worth jumping in and trying to cover them the best we can for the fans of it. Now, our forums are very nice, but they are a little more fanboy at times. But still, I think our community is great. And that's XboxEra.com or YouTube.com/XboxEra is our main YouTube channel. And we are finally XboxEra on Twitter. We got the old account that was on there. We got the name Twitter, but still can't do it on Twitch. We're the XboxEra on Twitch.
Yeah, them taken care of, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, we just slipped Elon Musk another... oh shit! I'm not going to say that.
He needs the money, man. Listen, he needs it.
No, I was going to go a lot darker.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, listen, I like that too. All right, here's the poll from Friday. Are you still redeeming free games from the Epic Game Store? People got real mad because I forgot to include some of them as an option. So I said yes, all of them. 36.2%. No was 38.8%, and 25% was never was redeeming them. Listen, you get mad at me, that's just engagement, and then the poll does even better, and then I get more money. No, I don't get any money.
Not really. Yeah, engagement's shit.
Yeah, it doesn't mean
Thank you
anything.
for the reminder, though. I got to go on Epic Games and make sure I redeem the latest games.
I do. Yes, I don't do this very often anymore.
All of the C. There you go.
Yeah. What's the last one of these that you redeemed that you played? A lot of people play a lot of them. So
Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Okay.
Because I wanted to see, because I got a new PC and I was like, okay, now I've got this on PC.
There's a good benchmarking tool on that game.
Well, no, it's an AMD PC, so no ray tracing.
Okay. Well, AMD could kind of do not as well.
It can. It hits hard.
I wouldn't do it.
Anything with Super FSR 2.1 is a lot more manageable.
Yes,
but
definitely.
It's still not up to DLSS levels.
Yes. All right. Close. I have a new poll I'm going to bring up. Let me do that right now. Bring us back there. Let's see. If we only get one, would you prefer a Metroid-style Castlevania or a big-budget 3D action Castlevania? That's the one I'm putting here. What do you think?
Oh, I'm with you. I'd much rather go with the 2D because as the Xbox era reviewer of most 2D Metroidvanias, 2D roguelikes, and the unfortunate 2D Souls-likes, I don't think it works very well in that. And I really would hope that a new Castlevania would not do the Souls-like thing. That kills me in those games. I hate wasting time. But yeah, I would definitely prefer the 2D because I think they'll be able to get that up and going and higher quality faster. Doing a big ass third person AAA Castlevania is everything's like 7 or 8 years now in total. It's not gonna be quick.
I think whatever they do, I think they should lean into the anime. I don't think everything should make this choice, but I think if you make a big budget 3D action Castlevania, you should talk to the folks that made Hi-Fi Rush and say, hey, can we get your animation tech? Can we just learn what you did?
Yeah, just an Unreal.
And I'm just like apply that to your game and make a Castlevania 3D action game that looks like that. And honestly, the 2D game should be that as well. Or the 2D game could just look like a Game Boy Advance game, and I'd be pretty cool with that too. But that's me.
Yeah, there's anything Ori style. That's just Unity. That's their branch of Unity. Like when you've got the artists,
all these things are like a ton of work on top of those engines for sure. Yes.
Like the Batman Arkham Knight is Unreal Engine 3, but it's not Unreal Engine 3.
Right, exactly.
It's very different.
Yeah, they build their own tools over time, and it's like, okay.
The Coalition pretty much has their own branch of Unreal that everyone's using. So, but yes, I think the 2D, either that painterly look to match the anime, that would be so fun.
We will talk about this question on Wednesday's show of Game S Morning here on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, what do we have going on this week? I don't know. I think we'll have a meeting here in a little bit where we'll figure out all that stuff. We should have an episode of Play It Forward with Alpha Protocol going soon. I think that'll be me playing with Rory, I think, if that one hasn't gone up yet. We got to play it. Yeah, Play It Forward is dropping today. Jan confirms. Okay, great. And then we'll have the Bombcast tomorrow. Tune in for that. I'm looking forward to it.
Always.
Yes. And then later this week, we'll have Grubber Lang. We will have a Blight Club, more than likely. And then we'll have UPF, all that stuff. And then look out for all the other special shows we'll try to get. We'll put a calendar up. You guys can see what's going to happen there. In the meantime, though, Jesse, thank you so much for taking your time to speak with me today about video games. I appreciate it, and I love it, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. You are a wonderful friend.
Thank you. Likewise. And everybody, you're the best audience of gaming. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. Let's get some lunch.